Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Housewives Book Club. I'm your host, Molly Mulshine. This is my great friend and your other host, Jennifer Keefe. Jen, how do you feel?
I feel great. Wow, using my Christian name, Jennifer.
I know, it just goes so well with Keefe because of the double F, I guess.
Madonna Mia, if you will.
Madonna Mia. We're on part 3 of Teresa Giudice's memoir, Turning the Tables.
Yes, that's the title.
From Housewife to Inmate and Back Again. We're at the culmination of all Teresa has been through in prison. And it's interesting because if we're following a 3-act structure, which most films do, Turning the Tables is a bit strange because, Act 1, you're setting the scene, you're going through her early life. Act 2, she gets to prison. But then we kind of have this extended several chapter long scene setting of prison. And then it's not until the very end in Act 3 that crises begin to arise in prison. So I'm interested in how the ghostwriter formatted this. Do you get what I'm saying? If you were writing it as a screenplay, for example, you would have the inciting moment after you establish her family life in Act 1 would probably be the court case. You would have some twists and turns in the court case until the end of Act 1, but she doesn't have that. She's just kind of is like, and we are going to prison and I still didn't do anything wrong, And then you would have some sort of prison drama that lasted the duration of the prison stay instead of what we have here, which is where we get tons and tons of drama in the last 3 or 4 chapters of the book.
Yes. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, any crises are saved for Act 3, which is a choice.
Yeah. You tease the crises at the beginning in the first half of the book or so that we stay on the hook. But I guess maybe it's just because this one was so rushed to press. And I'm not saying rushed in a bad way. I think it's really impressive that they got this out 6 weeks after she got home from prison. That's absurd and so impressive. So I guess maybe they just were like, we're not gonna worry too much about structure. We'll do it live, to quote Bill O'Reilly. Yeah.
Okay, so chapter 6, the title of which is, remind me, Molly?
Drama Queens, dressed in greens.
Perfect. So chapter 6 is more prison memoir, detailing the daily life of prison. There were definitely a couple highlights for me, one of which was Teresa details that she got switched to a different dorm at prison. She got switched to dorm A, and she
got to leave the boom boom room.
Yes, she got to leave the boom boom room. However, when she gets to dorm A, here she was expecting all this relief from the boom boom room, but dorm A as a dorm is colloquially referred to as, do you remember the name, Molly?
What was it? Enlighten us.
They called dorm A Vagina Heights. I laughed out loud many times reading this book, and that was one of them.
The nicknames in prison are so good. They come from the gut and they all work so well. I mentioned this already last episode, but I have gotten so many little chuckles out of Teresa getting cornrows and then everyone calls her the OG from then on. It's so funny to me. It's just like peak comedy, and calling a dorm in prison Vagina Heights is, it's incredible. You know exactly what it means.
Yeah.
Which is what? What does it mean?
It means there was a lot of relationships in dorm A. So Teresa does not say that her bunkies were hooking up like back in the boom boom room in her old dorm, but it just seems like as a whole, there's a lot of relationships in dorm A.
A lot of drama. The drama of the relationships really takes center stage from this point forward. I would say in the 3rd act of this book, the 2 animating forces for arguments, fights, disciplinary action are relationships and TV and other mass media intrusion.
Or mass media, oh my God. Yes, this is a Housewives book club podcast, but as all fans of Bravo know, Bravo texts are both high and low brow. Now, I want to talk about, they make us reflect on social conventions, culture, and I'm striking out on this.
I agree with you. And they frequently externalize the battles we have in our own minds about friendships and relationships, things that we've thought about before, but that didn't rise to the level of, I'm going to bring this up with this person. They bring it up on all the Housewives shows. And that is what makes them so addictive.
Yes. Bravo Media always connects back to greater social issues. Okay, so I'm reading Teresa's memoir. And I recall, this is literally yesterday, that one of my first jobs in New York City, I was a barista. And I worked with a young man who I'm still Facebook friends with. I have Facebook just for the marketplace. Please just don't crucify me. It's just for the marketplace, okay? So I know because of that this young man went on to become, he's not a young man really anymore, a New York City corrections officer.
That was my big question. Who does this job?
In chapter 6, Teresa talks about how, a guard comes and visits her new dorm and they're inspecting it. They have inspections all the time, daily. They have more intense ones when they're trying to find a piece of contraband. They heard there's a rumor that there's a phone. There's a lot of inspections of the rooms. And during one of the first ones in dorm A, Teresa asked the guard, how can you tell if someone just plants something in our room? And he's like, well, he doesn't give an answer because he knows it's bull crap, keeping this PG-13. Now, after reading that passage yesterday, I was inspired to Google this former barista colleague, because I know he's a corrections officer. Lo and behold, he was arrested and served time for planting contraband in Rikers in a cell.
My goodness, I would love to know how they caught him.
It is so unbelievable. So obviously a lot of prison guard corrections officer behavior goes unchecked, like a lot of law enforcement. And allegedly this corrections officer that I once knew did a use of force on an inmate. He used pepper spray on an inmate in a way that was not justified. I believe that he wanted to perform an inspection and the man was praying for Ramadan at that very moment. It was like right before sunset or something, or sunset. And he said, just give me literally 1 second, then I'll do it. And then he immediately goes to pepper spray him. And in the milieu after.
The Melu?
How do you say that word? Milieu?
Melee?
Sugar.
We can go with Melu. What happened in the Melu?
Man, okay. Melee, darn. Okay. Well, in the milieu.
Are you thinking milieu also, which is not what that means either?
Sure, we'll go with that. So there's a lot of officers now wrestling the guy, the inmate, he's yelling, and the corrections officer that I know, they all wear body cams, but he thought his body cam was not on. He goes into the room of the guy he just peppered spray. So this is all body cam footage. And he plants a shank, a hard plastic shank, clear as day, into the room, and then looks around the room like he's looking for something, and then grabs the shank that he planted and goes, found it. And he goes to click his body cam on, he thinks, for that moment.
My goodness. What a dodo.
What a dodo. So he was fired and arrested.
Wow. I mean, it seems like one of the worst jobs that you could have because you are just kind of kicking people when they're down. And I'm sure there are people who go into it for respectable reasons, maybe, but it just seems like something that if someone's desperate to become a corrections officer, to me, I would kind of assume that they just want the power over people. But I would love a better way to read that. I knew someone once whose dad was a corrections officer and he seemed like a really, really nice guy. So I'm sure there definitely are people who are nice and they just fall into it somehow because I'm sure it's like a decently paying job. Obviously, compared to barista, that's probably how you get into it, by being a barista and trying to survive in Manhattan. You're like, you know what? I actually like my odds better as a prison guard, So, but it's interesting because Teresa went out of her way to say that she felt for the corrections officers because she thought that they had like a really tough job. And I thought it was big of her to say that because I don't know. And it seems like she was treated decently a lot of the time by them. And it seems like the interactions that she did have with the personnel working in FCI Danbury, they were largely fair and decent, and she didn't really get, like, screwed over by any of the people that worked there, but it's very easy to see how you could get screwed over, and she also kinda casually mentioned a lot of rumors that certain inmates would be, being intimate with the corrections officers with no and she didn't really have any seem to have any.
Concrete examples.
Yeah, no concrete examples and also no awareness that that would be sort of an assault scenario because of the power imbalance. Not that it's her job to say that, but she just kind of related it as an entertaining anecdote. Like, and I heard some of the girls would be doing this in order to get more commissary, they would give blowjobs, and it was just like, okay. And I don't know, it was just another thing in the book where she was giving sort of details and recounting events and not really reflecting much.
Malls, I'm going to push back on that because I thought in that passage, Teresa was really reflecting on the injustice of it all. She's talking about inmates who don't have money for commissary, selling, doing sex work, for lack of a better word.
Right, she was talking about them doing sex work with other inmates, basically.
Yeah, I thought she left it pretty open to it could be other inmates, it could
Yeah.
be guards, but she says, I loved when sort of the socialist leftist points of view would pop out of Teresa as a result of being in prison. She said, I heard that some women even sold their bodies just to make enough money to buy the essentials at commissary. My heart breaks for women and men because I'm sure it happens in men's prisons too that have to go down that road just to survive. Some people fool around in prison because they want to and it makes them happy. But when someone is driven to go to those lengths out of desperation, well, that makes me sad. People who have never experienced the system think it's like a free ride, that undeserving people get shelter and food at the expense of taxpayers. After having seen and heard the incredibly moving and difficult stories of some of my fellow inmates, I cannot justify that way of thinking.
Yeah, you're right, that is very reflective.
Yeah. I was like, "That's the most reflective one." It would really caught my eye because it was so profound.
Yeah, it definitely was, and I'm glad that she kind of felt that way and had that perspective because I'm sure the worst crime that she mentioned anyone doing that she met was, robbing a bank. And that's not even like you said in one of the previous episodes, you're robbing the bank. It's not even a real victim. But I did laugh a little when she talked about one of the women who robbed a bank and she was like she didn't know any better. And I was like that's like the most famously criminal crime. To rob a bank. It's like, "Oh, you're not supposed to do that? God, I didn't know that." But then I was like, yeah, the woman was obviously raised in a different milieu, to use a term that you love, where it was like, yeah, sometimes you rob a bank because you need money, But it made me laugh, like, she robbed a bank because she didn't know any better. How are you supposed to know you're not supposed to rob a bank? What are we
Yeah.
reading law books now?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I wanna bring up 2 other things about chapter 6, then we'll go to chapter 7, the TV wars, because I know we're eager to get there. But one thing that made me laugh, but also sad, she was talking about a birthday party for a friend named Zizi, and she said that at the party they were playing songs by Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, Nelly, and 2 Chainz, and they asked me to come dance. I was nervous to dance because I didn't want that to get out and have it taken the wrong way somehow. I thought it was sad that I couldn't even dance.
That
So
was
she
also really astute, like, the fact that she was like, "Oh, they could report in the tabloids or something that I'm dancing in prison, and people will think I am not suitably, penitent." And I was like, "Wow, I would have never thought of that," and it really is such a good point and sad.
She really knew how to move in prison. She was very smart about it. She would walk away from any altercation going on. And yeah, she was thinking about the tabloids selling anything from prison.
Yeah, but then she does end up dropping it low, and everyone's cheering her on, which was a great scene.
Yes, totally, totally. Okay, Teresa had reiterated another socialist point of view regarding prison, but she said it in a very interesting way. And knowing you, Molly Mulshine, I wonder if you caught it. She said regarding how most of I think entirely the women at Danbury are not in there for violent crimes. She said, they say women don't need to be locked up for nonviolent crimes.
Who's
So
they?
Exactly.
It is called being locked up for nonviolent crimes.
Okay,
Okay,
found
I
it.
found it.
Oh, great, cool.
Yeah, let me read this quote.
Yeah.
One thing the women said over and over was that they had learned their lesson pretty early on because life at Danbury was not fun, cushy, or like a country club, no matter what people said. They say that people don't need to be locked up for 5, 10, 15, or 20 years for a nonviolent crime. It's especially hard for women because often they have to leave their children behind. And it always really upset her to see children clinging to their mothers. In many cases, it just wasn't fair. Yeah, she's basically reflecting on the fact that these people have these insanely long sentences, but they're in a low security prison. So it's like, if you're not violent or criminal enough that you need to be in a max security prison for the good of society, why do you need to be in Danbury for 15, 20 years?
Exactly, exactly. I thought her use of the word they say that people don't need to be locked up for 5, 10, 15, or 20 years for nonviolent crime. Was she not comfortable having that be her point of view? You know what I mean?
Right, right. It seems like that was probably the scuttlebutt around Danbury. Like people were probably always saying, none of us are even violent. What are we doing here? And I think this is something that Tree probably didn't even like think that much about before she got locked
Okay.
up. And it's something that probably most people don't think about until, I mean, I would have never thought about that until I went to college and watched a documentary on the prison industrial complex. Like it was not
Totally.
a
Yeah.
conversation for our generation growing up. I'm sure like maybe kids who are ultra online right now are more aware because it's sort of a social justice talking point now, which is great. But I could see her being someone who hadn't really thought that deeply about it and just assumed that anyone who was in prison had probably like done something pretty bad.
Yeah, I read it as I was way more cynical. I thought she was trying to express it is total BS that people in this world get prison sentences for 20 years for nonviolent crimes. And I thought the they that she inserted, she was using as sort of a royal they for a more socialist point of view that she was not comfortable stating herself. But I agree with you. She didn't think about it that much. And I really went down a rabbit hole in my head.
No, I mean, this is why we love literature because we can interpret and reinterpret endlessly.
Yes. Yes.
In that passage, she is especially disturbed by the fact that women are separated from their children because of these nonviolent crimes. And I agree with her completely because it is so detrimental for a loving mother to be separated from her children. You're literally creating a cycle of generational trauma when you do that. And later on in another chapter, she talks about the girls. Oh, it was so sad. During a visit, Gia bent down and said softly to Adriana, "Don't cry. Remember, we talked about this. If you cry, then mommy will cry." So sad. And she was proud of the girls for being strong again. But she says later on, when talking about being separated from her kids, that this was the worst part, being separated. It seems so unnatural to me. A mother is supposed to be with her children. I tried to keep so busy in prison because if I didn't, all I thought about was how I was supposed to be home with them. This to me was the worst punishment of all for something I didn't even think I had done. She's sort of letting her true feelings show there about what she thinks about the actual charges, which again, I keep banging this drum, but I really feel like she has not fully explained what was done, what she did or didn't do, how she felt about being charged with these crimes. This is kind of says it all to me. She still to this day doesn't think she did anything.
Do you think that Joe ever sat her down and said, okay, Tree, this is what happened?
What an interesting thought experiment. No, do you?
I wonder if he did, but in so many words, in sort of that vague Italian way, saying like, things happened. It's in the past, but something like that. But that's not really what I'm asking. Like, yeah, I don't think he ever laid out, hey, so back in 2013, there was this loan and I signed some stuff and you signed some stuff and I was lying on the form. Like, I don't think that has ever happened.
Right. I think he probably, because even when you read this book, she is still so deep drinking the juicy Kool-Aid. She
Oh,
talks
yeah.
about how amazing he was for taking care of the girls while she was in prison and that most men wouldn't have done that. And you just want to shake her because you're like, Tree, he's the reason you're in prison. Like,
Yeah.
and yes, it's great that he's taking care of the girls, that he didn't literally leave them while you were away, but this is kind of the bare minimum. Like, you don't need to be singing his praises for being a father to the kids that he helped bring into this world. And I think probably if any conversation was had between them, which is something that I would love to know, like, I'm obsessed with this. I want to know what she thinks she did and how she feels about it. But I think if any conversation was had, he probably was like, well, I needed to get this amount of money to do this work project. And I needed to get this amount of money to finish the house. So of course I put this on the form because that's how I got the money. And all the money was for was to finish our house. That's all I needed it for. And then I was going to pay it back. Like, I think that's probably the conversation that happened in their house ad nauseum and being egged on by all of the people around them. And I think the people that she ended up cutting out, like Jacqueline, for instance, would have been someone who said, wait, so you lied on this form? What happened? What did you do? Why did you do that? You can't do that. Like, we all got our mortgages by, well, the Loritas, who knows, and the Manzos, if they did tell the truth on their mortgage forms. But the way you're supposed to do it is that you're honest about the money that you have and your ability to pay back your mortgage. And then they give you the amount of money that you will be able to pay back so that you don't go bankrupt. Like, this is how it works. And so you're telling me that that's not what you did? Like, I think anyone who talked to her in that way would have been cut out immediately. But the people who reinforced this idea that this was a man trying to provide for his family. This was a man needs to give his family a home. What, you're going to demonize that? You're going to criminalize that? Like, I think that was probably the loop that was playing in the Giudice household and kind of plays to this day, Because
Yeah, you're dead on.
and the next line after, for something I didn't even think I had done, which I can't believe she even let that slip, that she doesn't think she did it. And the next line is, but whoever said life was fair. And you can hear that in Juicy's voice. Do you know what I mean?
Wait, why are you saying that you can't believe she let that slip? Because in the earlier chapters, when she's talking about the trial and the indictment, she's pretty open that she has no idea why the heck this is happening.
I just think this is the clearest she's ever stated it.
Okay.
And that's why it really just like pinged my radar, because I was like, okay, this is a huge clue as to how she feels about these charges, which she will not discuss on TV or in this memoir. Do you know what I mean? She shut down every mention of if they did or didn't do anything. She really, and listeners, correct me if I'm wrong, did not allow any discussion of what was done or wasn't done. All of the discussion was centered around, I don't want to be separate from my girls. We're dealing with these legal problems. Leave it to my lawyers to discuss. And after the judgment was handed down, it was just, I'm separating from my girls, and that's what we're talking about. There was never any discussion of, here are these papers I signed, blah, 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 from Teresa's mouth. She shut it down every time. And bringing it up on the show was a one-way ticket to getting cut. Like, she will never speak to you again if you brought it up.
Right. Okay.
She just put her head in the sand fully with
Yeah.
that stuff, which,
As all of our indicted housewives have done.
yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, what has Jen Shah ever said about her alleged crimes?
She was, if you remember, there was that episode of SLC where she's in New York for her trial, and Meredith and Heather go. I know Heather went. I think it was Meredith, the other one that went. And up until
I was surprised by the way that Meredith sort of caped for Jen.
I know. I think it was some sort of production plant storyline that never really made sense why she was there for Jen Shah.
Because Meredith is a lawyer. But I think maybe Meredith thought she was being wrongfully accused or something and thought, I'm a lawyer, I can help my friend. But then correct me if I'm wrong again, I don't think she has taken up for her since she was found guilty. I think since all the information came out, I definitely think Meredith was like, oh, hell no. Like, I'm washing my hands of this woman.
Oh, totally. All of
Yeah.
them were. But my point is that until Jen walked out of that trial where she pled guilty and they were all stunned, she was staunchly maintaining she did nothing wrong. And then she walks out having pled guilty. And that's sort of when all of them, to quote Meredith, disengaged from the Jen Shah narrative.
Right. I mean, what do you do when you get caught committing a crime and you have to talk about it? This is where I become like a I don't want to say I don't want to say conservative, but just the pattern that we're talking about right now between Teresa, Jen Shah, and even the Grand Dame. Has she ever admitted that she has a drinking and driving problem?
No.
Has Shannon Bedour ever admitted that? Like, that is to me the mind of a criminal to not even be able to say that was really bad and I messed up. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And what is it about the Housewives universe where being accused of, excuse me, admitting that you have a drinking problem or issues with alcohol is the touchiest no fly zone to end all no fly zones? Like that sets them off.
I know. Well, because they always say, not the housewives, but just the general they, that alcoholics are in denial. That's a big part of alcoholism. So I guess that's what it is because the, an alcoholic has to really protect the idea that there is nothing wrong because if they start to question their relationship to alcohol, then that might mean they have to cut down on alcohol, which is anathema to them. Whereas for me, like even when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I was doing a lot of reading about like sobriety and like sober curious. And if you had said to me at that time, maybe you've been drinking a little too much, I would have been like, yeah, for sure. You know, like during, so I think that's what makes me not an alcoholic. Is what I'm saying because I would have been like, yeah, 100%. But I think if I had a real drinking problem, like if I had a real emotional dependency on alcohol, I probably would have been like, well, it's the same as my other friends, or I would, you know what I mean? And we see this, and I don't want to name names of the housewives because some of them are my favorite housewives.
Exactly. And we're thinking the same thing.
We are thinking of probably the exact same person who I would die to be like in their inner circle or something, you know? But it really is it really helps you to understand how and why alcoholism is a disease with symptoms because the pattern is so real. The pattern of I don't have a drinking problem, you have a drinking problem. Like with all of these women, you know, well, what about someone else's drinking? That's what they always do, even on the Valley right now. Let's talk about
Oh,
Danny.
yeah.
I don't want to be friends
Yeah.
with Danny Bucco, but that's his whole thing. And Nia, as his enabler, sorry, no offense, Nia, they are just going throughout the rest of the group and being like, what about that person's drinking? What about that person's drinking? And it's like, no, we're not, those people haven't groped anyone. We're not talking
Right.
about them, you know? So it's just, but back to the question of when you are convicted of a crime and unable to take accountability for that crime, that to me is very scary. That's like a scary person. And that's sort of, it feels like very disordered to me. And it's hard because a lot of the time while I'm reading this book, I feel such immense sympathy for Teresa and I really see her humanity in a real, real way. And after reading it, I'm just like, God, she does seem like a sweet lady. But then when you remember the outbursts and the denial and the blame shifting, you're like, there is another side to this person that obviously she's not going to talk about in her memoir. And this is why we need journalism and this is why we need unauthorized biographies, you know?
Totally. It all comes back to journalism on Housewives Book Club.
It's
Well, that feels like a good bookend to chapter 6. Shall we move on to the much anticipated chapter 7 TV Wars,
TV
Malls?
Wars. Oh my God. This was like a media studies 101 wet dream. The fact that this woman, Teresa Giudice, she's living her life. She gets cast on a TV show. The TV show, some have said, contributes to her arrest. She gets caught having more money than she's supposed to because of the cameras, some people say. She gets into prison and everything is pretty much smooth sailing for her until the TV wars. She gets imprisoned because of TV and goes into prison and gets in fights over the TV. It was just, my God, I want to be an American studies professor and just like do a dissertation on this.
This is where I say you need to get click-clacking on your Substack.
I know I'm going to for sure because it's crazy. So, okay, something really interesting about the TVs in Danbury. There were several from what I gathered. I would have, by the way, loved a map of Danbury. I want to see where the A dorm, the B dorm, the D dorm, which is full of dog hair, even though the dog program ended 10 years ago. That was sickening,
Yeah.
sickening to me. But anyway, the TVs, there are several TVs. I guess they're all in different rooms, and the women divide themselves along racial lines to watch TV together.
Yep, that's what it is.
Okay, Jen, this is going to be a very long excerpt, but you're an actor, so I'm going to hand it over to you to go through this. Can you please read for us Teresa's explanation of the racially based TV division system?
I would be honored. Okay. Quote, they had 5 TVs for 200 women. I learned very quickly that the inmates gravitated as a group to certain shows and things on TV and basically took control of that TV. The African American women would mostly gather in one room and watch shows like Empire, Scandal, The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Love and Hip Hop, New York, Basketball Wives. I liked a lot of the same shows as they would watch, so I was in there a lot with them. They were great. They told me they were happy I was there, which made me feel really good. I made some really close friends in that room and shared a lot of good laughs with them.
Like the
Okay.
African American inmates, the Hispanic women also watched TV together. They lost their room months later when they used that area for Skyping. So that's fascinating too. What did the Hispanic women do after they lost the room for Skype? Anyway, they took over another TV room and would watch Univision and the telenovelas they loved so much. Even though I speak Italian, I don't really understand Spanish. Well, they are different languages, Tree. So I wasn't in there much, though I would pop in now and then to say hi to somebody I knew and catch up. The white ladies commandeered another TV room, although women from all backgrounds would come in depending on what was on. They liked to watch a lot of the Bravo shows, HGTV, Extra, Food Network, Access Hollywood, Dancing with the Stars, Lifetime, Scandal, Grey's Anatomy, talk shows, and the news, so I was in there a lot too. As for the Asian women, there weren't enough of them to command their own TV, so they were at the mercy of whatever was on in those rooms. Basically just bounced around depending on what was on or which of my friends was in a particular room. Everyone welcomed you. They were happy you were there, unless there was some kind of disagreement over what people wanted to watch, which happened all the time. So we were having these sort of racially tinged disagreements in prison over who gets to watch what on TV. That is so wild to me. I mean, she doesn't talk about any other disagreements along racial lines until it comes to TV. I wonder if that's because Teresa, as a TV star, is just more attuned to the TV stuff, or if it really is something where we have racial harmony in every other area of the prison except when it comes to TV.
My guess is no. There is disharmonious racial moments outside of the TV room. But yeah, maybe you're right. It's because she's a TV star that she's locked in. I do know from my limited experience volunteering at Attica that the TV room is a huge deal and it is a big source of tension.
Yeah, it's a portal to the outside world in a way that nothing else really can be. Because it's a communal portal. That's why. Because you can read a book and be transported to the outside world and get that escapism, but you're alone. So the TV is what you can watch with everybody that gives you that escapism in a communal way. And something that I also found fascinating was that movie night was a unifier. When they picked a movie, everyone of every race watched the movie together, and that was a huge deal. So once again, the TV stars are the also rans, always the bridesmaid, never the bride, to the movies. The movies are this sacred institution which unites all people, and they are even more communal than the television.
Yeah. I want to bring up one more aspect of the TV hierarchy. I'm quoting here. While the women were territorial over seats in the dining room, when it came to the TV rooms, they created a whole system to keep control over their turf. Every group had a senior member who would dictate what everyone was going to be watching that day. Then there was the gatekeeper, the one who would always be in control of the remote. When that inmate had to go work or to eat, another one would watch over it like their life depended on it.
They've got these systems in place because the TV time is so sacred that you actually need specific personnel in each and every group to guard the remote and to dictate what's going to be on. There's nothing else she talks about in the prison experience that really gets the same reverence. No, the other thing is the fitness DVDs she keeps mentioning that were all by the same guy. What was his name? I was like,
Bob Harper.
Bob Harper. I was like, who is Bob Harper? Oh, the Biggest Loser guy, Bob Harper from Traitors.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
God, have they met since she got out of prison?
My gosh, I would love to think that the world of Peacock has brought them together again. But I loved all of the little kernels we got from the the early 2010s workout DVD storm. She had Jillian Michaels. She had a yoga guy I hadn't heard of, but she was going hard on those DVDs. This might be a good time to talk about her workout routine, or do you want to stay back on the TV wars?
We need to just say a couple more things about the TV wars, I think, because I want to talk about her workouts and how fit she got. Also
Yep.
her reading list, extensive. So, okay, there were, I think, two different TV related conflicts, correct? And one of them was in a later chapter that really was very troubling to Teresa because it was an issue where her friend sort of sold her out. And she was very upset about that. Her friend Tanya, she got into a little bit of an altercation with another woman. Teresa kind of told them both to stand down, and it escalated to an administrator in the office. They had to like go to somebody's office and talk about it. And her friend Tanya, who was her roommate in the A dorm at this point, did not stick up for Teresa to the guy who was, not berating them, but talking to them about it. She never said Teresa wasn't involved. She just kind of sold Teresa out. So then Teresa starts giving her the silent treatment for a few days. And then they finally talk about it and bury the hatchet. But yeah, it was like her one really big conflict with someone close to her in prison, and it erupted over the TV because these new women came into the prison and they were sort of jockeying for supremacy, and they tried to take control of that TV away.
No, no,
So,
no.
yeah, so I don't know, what did you make of that?
I think it rocked her world. Also, in an earlier chapter, there was this really ominous sort of oracle of a woman who came up to her and said, "You can't trust everyone in here. Not everyone's a good person." And not that Tanya's not a good person for this incident, but I think it really shook Teresa's prison foundation security that Tanya didn't stick up for her with the warden or the CO or whoever was the disciplinarian, that she didn't have anything to do with this TV fight.
Yeah, because I think she also really, really did not want to be penalized or get any shots, as they call them. She really was so freaked out about that. So I think the idea that she could get one for sticking up for her friend, I think like shook her to her core because, yeah.
Yes, I was an actor in later seasons of the show of Orange is the New Black, but during the show's heyday, that first season, seeing these terms shots out of bounds, I was like, yes, we heard that on Orange is the New Black because of course Piper Kerman did her time at Danbury.
I know it's really kind of cool that it was the same place that
Hmm.
Teresa went. It's really wild.
Yeah.
She talks about watching a lot of movies while she was inside, and her favorites were The Theory of Everything, Safe Haven, My Sister's Keeper, and The Count of Monte Cristo, which is now one of my favorite movies of all time. I love how after years in prison, the Count goes on to lead a triumphant, fulfilling life. That is what I want too. I want to be called the Countess of New Jersey. Just kidding. Dot, dot, dot.
A little shade towards my girl.
I know, that was cute though. I really loved I'm not really familiar with the Count of Monte Cristo, but I'm gonna have to look into it and see what the parallels are with Teresa's life. And would you say, I mean, the thing that is so sad about this, so many of these types of passages where she talks about what she's gonna do when she gets out is that she got out. Joe went in. Teresa ended up divorcing Joe. We all had this moment of optimism of like, she's going to stand on her own. She's not going to repeat the mistakes of her past, which, in a lot of people's opinion, the biggest mistake of her past was trusting Joe. And then she immediately, I know we've gone through this before, but she goes with this guy, Louis, who seems to be like he might be capable of the same sort of financial mishigas that Joe did. And it just is so, it's such a bummer. There were just so many things that she said, like, for instance, in here saying, the Count goes on to lead a triumphant, fulfilling life. That's what I want too. And you're just like, God, now she's with Louis, who's like maybe horrible. And then another one later on, she's talking about praying that God will help to set her on the right track. And then you're like, God, and now she's with Louis. I don't know. It just, it just feels so ominous kinda when you're reading it and knowing where she is now. Louis currently owes $2.6 million in tax liens, and he has another open IRS case for $163,000. He defaulted on $1 million real estate loan. Like, all this stuff is just blaring alarms. Do you know what I mean? In March, they
Of
were hit
course.
with a combined $3 million in tax debt, and it's just like, I don't know, I think if Teresa had stayed on her own and was left to her own devices, I just don't think she'd be owing $3 million in taxes. I don't.
Yeah, it's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. Sorry, that last piece you mentioned, the combined 3 million, that's a shared debt between Louis and Teresa, or that's all Louis?
It seems like that is a shared debt. This is
Oh,
from People
no.
Magazine from, April 1st, 2025, actually, so this is kinda old, but yeah, it's oh my god, Ruelas took out an extension on the loan for their shared home in the beginning of March. Legal experts say that they have not taken the appropriate action to respond to it. If the debt goes final, they can seek to collect it, blah, blah, blah. It's just, like, not a good situation. It just seems like it says it's unclear exactly what led to the tax liens. Some possibilities include underreporting income. Come on, you can't be, come on.
Not as a housewife, you're gonna get caught.
Yeah, or failure to pay property taxes, which, yeah, the property taxes are probably astronomical on that giant house.
House is huge.
Yeah, maybe time to downsize. Like, let's be empty nesters. There's no shame in downsizing. Everyone doesn't have to live in a McMansion, you know?
Question about Louis. I always took some piece of peace from the fact that he seems involved in his kid's life. I think he just has a son or two sons, and that Teresa's daughters, well, ignoring recent events, seemed rosy about Louis.
Well, to
Where do
that,
you where do you think that comes from?
I mean, they're still very supportive and rosy about their dad, you know? Like, I think obviously I don't know them, I don't know the whole situation, but to speculate as an outsider, it seems to me like there's a culture in their family of not really questioning men and kinda just going along with whatever they say is best, and if they appear to be successful, they must be successful, and the rest of the world might be out to get them, but they themselves are never in the wrong. Just the
There
impression I kinda get.
there it is.
I
There it
w
is.
I wanna look up I'm looking up these other movies that she watched because 'cause they're
Okay.
all things I've never heard of. I heard of The Theory of Everything. This is when Eddie Redmayne plays Stephen Hawking. My Sister's Keeper, Abigail Breslin, Cameron Diaz, Alec Baldwin. It's a 2009 American legal melodrama. Interesting. A young girl seeks a lawyer's help to earn medical emancipation from her parents when they force her to donate organs, blood, and tissue to her leukemia-stricken elder sister. This
Gypsy Rose. Gypsy Rose.
Yes, this is wild that these were her favorite movies. And Safe Haven, Katie Feldman moves to the North Carolina coast to begin a new life. There she meets widower Alex and falls in love with him. However, happiness fades when her dark past haunts her life. Julianne Hough and Josh Duhamel. These are very like movie of the week. This is a fascinating. They deal with a lot of medical trauma, seemingly. These films that Teresa really loved in prison.
She also watched a lot of, like, Lifetime movies. I didn't write down the names.
Did she? Did she?
Based I guess I don't know for sure, but based on the names, it was, like, Forbidden Love and, stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, this is interesting also, by the way, Count of Monte Cristo, he is arrested on his wedding day for a crime he did not commit. No wonder Teresa identifies so strongly with him because she also believes that she committed no crime.
There you go.
Okay, what books did Teresa read in prison?
Joel Osteen. Joel Osteen, Joel Osteen. She found great comfort in Joel Osteen's book. And she spells out the full name. I didn't write it down, but yeah, every time Teresa mentions a book she's reading, she spells out the full name of the title.
Because the girl is in publishing now. She's like game recognized game. The title is You Can, You Will, 8 Undeniable Qualities of a Winner. She loved it.
She also read Ellen. I think we talked about this last episode.
Seriously, I'm kidding. What a change there has been. Can you imagine if Ellen came out with a book now? It would have to be like My Guilty Truth. Like she would never be allowed to write a book called Seriously ... I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Even
Our
though I
real
think she
life.
did nothing wrong.
Yes, totally. It is the punishment does not fit the crime when it comes to Ellen when you look at a Dave Letterman, for example.
Right. You cannot convince me that Ellen was worse as a boss than any male late night host during prime late time era. I'm happy to have the conversation with someone. I would love to be proven wrong, but it's my opinion, as Tamara says.
Exactly, exactly. Everyone I've heard secondhand that had any experience with Ellen was bad, but I think that generationally, if I knew anyone who worked on Letterman, they would have much crazier, darker things to say. But yeah, that it really upsets me that she has been banished, but no other late night host has.
Right. Yeah. Okay. The other books she read: This Family of Mine, What It Was Like Growing Up Gotti by Victoria Gotti, who's a close personal friend of Teresa, not me. Mafia Prince, I don't even know what that is. The Women's Devotional Guide to the Bible, The Five People You Meet in Heaven, Andy Cohen's latest book, Most Talkative Stories from the Front Lines of Popular Culture, and Jackie Collins's classic Hollywood Wives. So what do we learn about Teresa's state of mind from this book list, the movie list?
Yeah, they're a real wide array. You have sort of the self-help kind of stuff with Joel Osteen. You also have, it's a little sinister, the mob wife stuff, because she is sort of subconsciously a mob wife, even though she doesn't know. In some ways, I really don't think Joe was in the mob, but I think in the way that you're a contractor in New Jersey, there's some cash dealings that are off the books and not legal. And then she keeps it light with the Bravo, with the Ellen. So a real wide array.
Yeah, the mafia stuff is really interesting because for me personally, if I was trying to prove to everybody that I had never committed a crime, I wouldn't be like, and I spent my time in prison reading up on the mob.
Yeah. Yes, like there's a self-sabotage, like it's sort of the closer I am to this, the more innocent I actually seem.
Right. Or like some crimes are worth it. Some crimes are acceptable. I feel like that's kind of where her mafia, that's the sort of crossover between anyone who would be connected. They would be like, well, that's the lifestyle we're in. We have no choice. And I think that is probably what Teresa and Joe kind of told themselves and each other about their own, why they found themselves in prison, because they were providing for their family. Like, I think that was sort of probably the refrain. Mafia Prince is a first-person account of one of the most brutal eras in mafia history, Little Nicky Scarfo's reign as boss of the Philadelphia family, Go Birds, in the 1980s. Written by Scarfo's underboss and nephew, Crazy Phil Leonetti. Okay.
I don't think we talked about this last episode. I apologize if we did, but Teresa has mentioned how there's a men's prison referred to as Down the Hill, so it's physically very close to Danbury.
I
and how
loved this.
Yeah, and the mob guys down the hill would send word up to Danbury, I think through the COs, that they wanted to check on her and make sure she was okay.
Yeah, that was really interesting. So, once again, not the best way to prove your innocence. Look, oh, the mob guys were looking out for me while I was in prison, but I didn't do anything. But I also
funny.
loved it. It was so sweet to me. It was really endearing for some reason to me that the mob guys were looking out for Tree. I was like glad that someone was looking out for her because everyone needs to be looked out for in prison.
Do you think they were doing that, A, because she's Italian and from New Jersey and a sister in some way,
Yes.
or B, Joe put them up to it through word of mouth?
No.
So he didn't tell his plumbing guy, hey, tell your brother who's on the inside to look out for Tree.
Don't think so, because if you are going to start getting into that world of asking mob guys to do you favors, they're going to come looking for you to pay them back.
Okay.
So
Valid.
right. Like, and when this show first came out, I was much more bullish on the idea that most of these women were connected, especially because there was a Star Ledger story about the women and kind of talking about Tiny Manzo, Caroline and Dina's father-in-law. He was a known mob enforcer. But I actually do think that the Manzos more or less went legit. I don't think Albert Manzo is connected. I do think Dina Manzo's ex-husband, I mean, he was charged with hiring mob guys to rough up Herner. new husband. Do you remember that a few years ago?
Yes, wow.
Yeah, and Caroline wrote a letter of support to the court for him, not for her sister, who was beaten up by men.
Famously goes back to that it's okay to not talk to your family when you're a New
Dealing with
Jersey
that.
Italian sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe like yeah, so anyway, the question of Joe putting out the word to some mob guys, I don't know if he would want the smoke. Do you know what I mean? I think the mob guys, if anyone, it was Victoria Gotti. That's who it probably was. She probably was like, put the message out because when you're a woman, you can kind of get away with the women and children are supposed to be off limits. This is all based on me watching The Sopranos 30 times and Goodfellas 150 times. I'm really into the mafia for sure. I'll admit it. I think if you're a woman and you kind of ask for a favor, like, hey, can you make sure this person's okay? Or can you do this? Like, they're going to do that and not be like, well, now I'm going to ransack your small business. Whereas if you're a man asking for that type of favor, you would be a little bit more worried about it. Plus, Victoria Gotti's Victoria Gotti. Like, she can kind of ask for whatever soft favor she wants, probably.
That's a really compelling theory. And Molly, as we're talking about this, I just really have to zoom out and appreciate if you are a Bravo fan, a Teresa fan, Real Housewives of New Jersey fan, this book delivers when it comes to a housewife book. It just delivers. It has all these details we're giving. We've had 100 times more details than the other books that we've read. Like, you come to these housewives book wanting details like this.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Well, I mean, it's sort of the perfect crime, no pun intended, because she's being very detailed about a situation in her life that's incredibly compelling. But because it is prison, it's fully locked away from the drama of the show. She is allowed to invent people and create composite characters and fictionalize it to protect people's identities. It's sort of the perfect recipe for a book that delivers without affecting your day job. Do you know what I mean? As a Real Housewife. And at the same time, I also really, really appreciate how detailed and real and authentic it does feel. But it is like if you're a Real Housewife and you want to write a memoir that is going to really go there, as it were, this is the way to do it. It kind of is like, remember when we talked about Dorit's book and you were like, she gives so many details on the robbery. And it's like, well, yeah, because she was wronged. It has nothing to do with any of the other women on the show. It doesn't affect her loyalties to them or those interpersonal dynamics whatsoever. It's the perfect way to kind of kill time in a narrative sense, but have clean hands at the end of it. Do you know what I mean?
That is a very astute point. No one can refute anything she's saying about what happened in prison because they weren't there. And B, yeah, it doesn't complicate any of her relationships with the show, and it very much exists in isolation of the show.
Right, like this is not going to be brought up at the reunion. And this is not going to be she can't get a villain edit from her own retelling of this rich period in her life.
Like a That's So Raven flashback, I just had a memory of, gosh, I'm so scared about Wendy Osefo.
Gosh, I know. Oh my God. So what's the latest on Wendy?
I believe this fall is their trial.
Okay. I'm a huge Wendy fan and Eddie. Always have been. I just love them. They just are the kind of people like I want to be friends with them.
The last 2 seasons, I really came around on Wendy. I did not love her, but especially not the most recent season, the one before that, she was so fun and easy breezy. I had so much fun watching her. Yeah, really scared for how that's all going to shake out.
Yeah, me too. And it will be interesting once again to see if she admits any culpability whatsoever or if she continues to pull the Teresa, it was all a big misunderstanding and unnameable forces are out to get me. But it's not the Justice Department and it's not, like it's I don't know. It's because, like, if you were to ask Teresa, like, whose fault is it that this happened to you? Whose fault is it that you went to prison? You believe wrongfully. That's what I want to know. I want to know what she believes. But also, speaking of other books that we've covered, Teresa would be a huge Amanda Frances fan based on her reading list.
Totally. It all comes back to manifestation.
Yeah, I think Teresa, she would really benefit from Rich as F. But I also think, actually, I don't think she needs the lessons in Rich as F. I think that she is already living that lifestyle, and that's why she's in $3 million worth of debt famously and had to go to jail for mortgage fraud. So actually, I don't know if Teresa needs to learn anything more about living as though you have money you don't have, because I think she's nailed it.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so at the end of chapter 7, Teresa talks about a visit with the girls and Joe. They come visit her in prison, and how on the way out, she tells her juicy Joe how she whispers in his ear that she misses him and that she has learned some tips from the girls inside about some stuff they're going to do when she's out. Now, Molly, Teresa at this time is around 50 years old, right? I am genuinely curious, as someone who has been on the earth for 50 years. I've been on the earth for redacted years, over 30. But I genuinely want to know, what are the new tips in the sex space, the new moves that she has never heard of? Because she really genuinely seems to be learning some new moves from these girls. Like, you know what I mean? As an adult woman, I'm surprised that she has a capacity to learn more about sexcapades.
It's probably butt stuff. A good Catholic girl like Tree 100% made it to her 50s without even contemplating butt stuff.
Butt stuff for her or for Joe?
Maybe himself, prostate type things. But also, I don't know if he'd be up for that. And I don't want to speculate too much on their actual sex life. Didn't she say she didn't know about the G-spot until she went to prison and someone told her about it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing. She's a good Catholic girl, and she just never talked about this stuff with her friends ever. That's what she said. So she just kind of like I don't think she saved herself for marriage, but I think she barely dallied outside of marriage before she got married. And I think once she was in marriage, she was just kind of following Joe's lead, you know? So I'm sure she did learn some things.
What was that word? Dallied?
Yeah, had a dalliance. She was dallying.
Okay, yeah. Short for dalliance. Got it. Okay, so she was just a good Catholic girl. Okay.
Yeah, it's possible. It really is possible. I mean, we forget that like sex ed did not exist for any generation really before us. And the books that we would read, like my mom would always buy me these super girl power kind of feminist books about puberty that would sort of explain all the stuff that was going on. Teen Vogue is now doing like anal explainers,
Mm-hmm.
That was not happening 10 years ago, let alone 30 years ago when Tree was getting older,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, now, Jen, as crazy as this sounds, I think we're going to need to do a part 4 on this rich text.
It's not crazy at all. That's how much we're enjoying this book. That's how much is in this book. We can't recommend it enough.
We have like 3 more chapters left, maybe even 4, and we're out of time to record. So congratulations, Teresa. She's a true Taurus,
And what does that mean?
She's a workhorse. Like, she created a book that was so long that we need a full calendar month to cover it.
It's not that long.
Yeah, it's not even that it's long. Yeah.
It's rich. You said it. It's rich.
Yeah, there's just so much in it and there's so much going on. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Leave a comment on Spotify. I cannot stress this enough. We need your engagement. Please, please, please.
Please, please, please. Yes, I don't have anything interesting to add to that.
Well, you could follow us on Instagram and TikTok also.
Yeah.
Okay, until next week.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Malls.
Thanks, Jen.